Oh First thing, I want to thank our friend Reb Nachum, who sponsored and dedicated this Farbrengen. The loving memory of his mother, whose yahrzeit is on Yud Beis Tammuz, Esther Bas Reb Yitzchak Zechrona Livracha. It's probably worthwhile to say a few words as an opening, as a Hagdama, introduction, to explain the nature of this Hisvadus, of this Farbrengen, of this get-together, of this Kumsitz, and the date on which it's taking place, which is the night of Yud Beis, Mitzvah Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz, the 12th and 13th day of Tammuz. And I think the best way to illustrate it, and also to illustrate and explain the relevance for the people sitting here, coming together on this night. And not only for the people sitting here, but really for our brothers and sisters, for the Jews, wherever they are the world over. Sometimes you fight a fight, usually when a person stages a fight, a revolt, a rebellion, a mutiny, a milchama, it's because they want to be successful. And they hope, maybe even with a little glimmer of hope, that the fight will succeed, that they will come out victorious, triumphant. If there was ever a fight that was futile, or at least it seemed that way, that there was really no way of winning, it was this particular conflict that I want to describe to you. For this, we have to go a little bit down memory lane, back in history to the year Tov Reish Pei Daled, 1924. For many of us who were born or grew up here in the United States of America, a blessed country, a Malchus Shel Chesed, some of these stories don't have much immediate relevance, but they're important because they don't only tell a story of our past, but in many ways they also tell an important story of our present and our future. In 1924, Vladimir Lenin died. Exactly 100 years ago, 1917, was the Bolshevik Revolution, in the middle of the First World War, which began in 1914 on Tisha B'Av. One of the factors of the First World War was that empires were wiped off the map. The map of Europe was drawn anew. And one of the empires that fell apart in that war was the Russian Empire, the Tsarist Empire, which ruled for hundreds of years, but there was a revolution, and the Tsar Nicholas II abdicated. He was forced to leave the throne, and Russia was plunged ultimately into civil war, at the end of which the Communist Party triumphed. Bloody civil war, and finally Lenin came to power, and Tsarist Russia was completely obliterated. The Tsar and his family were executed brutally, among other hundreds and thousands of people, in the civil war, and ultimately the communists triumphed, and Lenin and Trotsky and Stalin and the entire leadership of the communist regime introduced a whole new world order based on Marxism and kavayachal, equality, victory for the workmen, for the simple people, no ownership, no wealth, no personal property. As Animal Farm taught us, everybody is equal, but some people are more equal than others. Lenin died in 1924. 900,000 people came to pay final respects to Lenin, who was the one who ushered in the revolution, and Stalin took over. Joseph Stalin, who was a man from Georgia, who suffered from terrible, terrible paranoia, and probably can be justifiably defined as one of the most evil men in history. Over the next 30 years, this man would murder 50 million people, his own people. Close to 50, historians debate, 40 million, 30 million, 50 million, 60 million. As he once said it himself, one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic. His sadism and brutality knew no bounds. The man ruled Russia with an iron fist from 1924 till his death in March 1953. 30 years later, Purim, Tovshin Yud Gimel, which is a whole story in and of itself about how his death came about. It's quite a fascinating story, but that's for maybe another talk or another time. Judaism and the Jewish people were one of his main targets. Religion generally was an arch enemy of the Communist Party. Faith in God was one of the worst crimes in communism. But Judaism and the Jewish religion were treated with an extra special venom. In fact, Stalin set up a party known as the group known as the Yevsektia, which was a section of the Communist Party designated specifically to deal with Jews, to uproot Yiddishkeit, Judaism. And you have to understand what the Soviets did, what the communists did within a few decades was incredibly successful from their perspective. Majority of Jews lived in Russia. The majority of Jews in the whole world were not in America, were not in Poland, were not in Galicia, were not in Hungary, in Western Europe. The majority of Jews, Poland had a few million Jews, but the majority of Klal Yisrael in terms of numbers, Roiv Minyan and Roiv Binyan of the Jewish people, lived in Russia, which was now under the Soviet, the USSR, the Soviet Union. And much of Russian Jewry was very involved in Yiddishkeit. Not all, I mean, there was mass assimilation already 100 years before. But within a few years of communist regime, almost all of Judaism was obliterated. Most rabbis escaped, they fled. Most Rosh Yeshivas fled. People like the Chafetz Chaim, people like Moshe Feinstein. You couldn't have a yeshiva, you couldn't train rabbis, you couldn't train students, you had to leave. And over the next few decades, Judaism was absolutely obliterated from Russia. Millions of Jews were completely, their children and grandchildren knew nothing of Judaism. Moyalim, if you circumcised, you were arrested. If you had a yeshiva, you were arrested, persecuted, gunned down, sent to the Gulag, died in Siberia, shot in the prisons. As I said, millions and millions of people were shot from all religions, but also from the Jews. Under these circumstances, it did not seem that Judaism will be able to survive there. That year, a rabbi, a thinker, a sage, who was 44 years of age at the time, gathered 9 people, 9 students, young students, into his room. He lived in Leningrad, which was really Petersburg, but part of the communists' plan was they eradicated every name associated with the Tsar. So Peterburg, which was named after Peter the Great, Peterburg, Peter, couldn't be a name that survived, so it had to become Leningrad, named after Lenin. Every name that was associated with the Tsarist government had to be obliterated from memory. This was part of the communist agenda. So this rabbi lived in Leningrad, and he gathered 9 people, 9 young students, and he explained to them the situation, the dire situation of the Soviet Union. Now you have to understand that Stalin was a genius in evil. He didn't only eradicate Yiddishkeit. What he did was he destroyed the very fabric of society. The fabric of society is based on family. He destroyed family. Why? If you would report on your child, you would be elevated. You would be promoted. If you would report on your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, you would be promoted in the Communist Party. Tremendous incentives for reporting on your own family. Imagine people could not trust anymore their children, their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents. Everybody was living in endless suspicion and was trained to lie about everything. It destroyed the fabric of a society. Both of my parents were born in Russia, grew up in Russia, so I'm quite familiar with the culture and what they went through from my own blood, even though I was born in America. And this was an extraordinary evil feat, what this man accomplished. The whole society, hundreds of millions of people, became eroded in its very fabric. The very fabric became rotten. And the Jews suffered terribly. He called in these 9 young people, and he said there will not be a future of Judaism, for Judaism here. And he wants to suggest to them the following offer: that they will accept upon themselves to fight and preserve Yiddishkeit in the Soviet Union at tipas dam acharon, until their last drop of blood. If they agree, he will be the 10th, 9, and he will be the 10th. They'll have a minyan, and they'll make it happen. They all agreed. He gave them a tkiyas kaf. He stretched out their hand. They all took an oath upon themselves. He divided the country between these people. And he sent them out to create an underground structure for Yiddishkeit throughout the Soviet Union. Over the next years, he built 600 underground schools. Imagine in America, somebody builds one school and they support it without a deficit. It's already a heavenly miracle. You can ask Rabbi Yerucham, I'll tell you. One school, one cheder. Imagine and this is a democracy and the government's help. Baruch Hashem, it's a beautiful country. In the Soviet Union, 600 yeshivas, Talmud Torahs, Chadorim. Some of them were open for a week, some of them for a month, some of them for 3 months, some of them for a year, some in cellars and attics. Teachers were exiled, persecuted, gunned down, shot, and a new school would open, a new yeshiva would open. They built mikvahs, they built shuls, they supported teachers and shachtim and moyalim and sent sidurim and books. And he became the address for every Jewish concern in the Soviet Union because there was nothing, no infrastructure that can last. One of these 9 people he sent to Georgia, to Kutayis, because he was a Georgian boy, so he sent him back to his hometown, his native hometown. Georgia was a very observant community, ignorant but observant, God-fearing Jews. They had 60 mikvahs. All were closed down, not just closed down, they were closed down with not just with a lock, they were buried in earth. Buried in earth. And this young man, who was sent out as one of the 9 emissaries, forged a document in the name of the stationery of the KGB, coming from Moscow supposedly, that there is a commandment from the capital that they have to open up 2 mikvahs within 24 hours. They couldn't determine if it's false, and they did it within 24 hours. There were 2 mikvahs open. He thought it'll take a few months till they verify and find out it's false. In the meantime, the women will have some mikvahs to be able to give birth to a new Jewish generation in purity. And so it went on. They built, and they had emissaries, and everything was top secret, all led to this one person in Leningrad. In 1927, the communists had enough. They decided enough is enough. They arrested him. June 1927, the night of Tesvav Sivan, Tofresh Pei Zayin, the 15th of Sivan, Tofresh Pei Zayin, they came into his house in Leningrad, and they took him away to the Shpalerka prison. For you, the name Shpalerka doesn't mean much. But for anybody who heard the word Shpalerka, you think Alcatraz is something. Shpalerka would send shrimmers, it would send fear and dread through a person's spine. People who went into that prison didn't come back. And remember, Stalin had no issue with murdering hundreds of thousands, millions of people. He was Hitler's match. They were like brothers, even though they were sworn enemies. But they were in the same generation. They were similar to each other in their endless brutality that most humans can't even fathom. And this man was sent into the Shpalerka. He was sentenced to death. Death by gunshot. The fact that he wasn't killed was an extraordinary fact, an extraordinary miracle. Instead, mamish a miracle plus pressure from outside, and the KGB converted his decree to 10 years in exile, which was also no party. Most people who were sent into exile did not come back. They died from cold or from illness and from harsh labor and horrible. I mean, millions died in the gulags. Solzhenitsyn writes about it, Stalin's gulags, millions have died. They sentenced him to 10 years in a place called Kostroma. He was in prison for like 18 days from Tesvav Sivan till Gimel Tammuz, the 3rd of Tammuz, 1927, and tortured and beaten mercilessly. On the 3rd of Tammuz, he was sent off to exile. First 10 years, then they converted it to 3 years. At the end, he was there only for 10 days. On the 12th day of Tammuz, he was liberated. On the 13th day of Tammuz, he actually left. Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz Tofresh Pei Zayin, 1927, exactly 90 years ago. This rabbi who I'm referring to was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, whose name I'm privileged to be named after him, known as the Rebbe Rayatz Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. He succeeded his father, the Rashab, Reb Shalom Ber, who was a grandson of the Tzemach Tzedek, who was a grandson of the Balatanya. He was the 6th Rebbe in the Chabad dynasty. He was born in 1880. Happens to be, he was born on his Chag HaGeula, which is Yud Beis Tammuz. His birthday was Yud Beis Tammuz, Tov Reish Mem, 1880. And he passed away on the 10th of Shvat, Tov Shin Yud, 1950, in New York. He saved him, so he escaped Nazi-occupied Warsaw and arrived in America and passed away 10 years later, Tov Shin Yud. And he's interred here in Queens, in the Montefiore Cemetery. This Lubavitcher, the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, he was this person who summoned these 9 men and dispatched them. He split up Russia between them and sent them. This man who went back to Georgia to falsify the documents, he was also arrested. He was arrested in 1938 when Stalin committed his famous purges, known as the purging period, where millions were arrested and killed, including many Jews, including hundreds of Hasidim, Chabad Hasidim. Most of them died, were killed. And he was also arrested, sentenced to death, and then his decree was converted to 25 years in Siberia, and ultimately he managed to get himself free towards the end of the war in the early 40s. I know the story about this man, one of these 9 men, well, because it was my grandfather. My father's father, his name was Reb Simon Yakubashvili. My real name is not Jacobson. It's a fake name. The real name is Yakubashvili. And he was one of these 9 who took this oath with the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1923-24 and was sent back to Georgia. He made it out of prison. Most of his colleagues did not. The other 8, most of them never made it out of Russia. They were killed there. He made it out in 1946. He left Russia. He moved to Europe, and then he moved to Toronto. He died very young from cancer in 1953. He died, and then his wife died right after. And they left 3 sons. The oldest was my father, Zechrono Livracha. His name was Reb Simon Yakubashvili. This was exactly 90 years ago. Tov Reish Pei Zayin, 1927. This is Tov Shnayin Zayin. Tonight is literally 90 years from that date. If you were living at that time and you watched all of this unfold, many would have turned to the Rebbe at the time, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, and tell him the obvious, which is what many told him. You are fighting the Soviet regime is akin to an ant fighting a tank, an army tank. Imagine an ant is crawling on the ground. The ant sees a tank and says, I'm going to take on this tank. It's futile. It's ridiculous. Who did he have? He had no ammunition. He had a few people. He had some Hasidim, some followers. The Soviets were growing to become a superpower. This was a nation of hundreds of millions of people. All resistance and mutiny was crushed down with absolute brutality and sadism. This conflict was literally hopeless. That's why most rabbis ran or left or went underground. Whoever wanted to continue to teach and practice had to leave. At some point they left. Here stood one man who carried Russian Jewry on his shoulders, and all of Russian Jewry, the Chassidim, the non-Chassidim, the Navardika, the Bali Musa, the Litvish, all types of Chassidim, Yidden. He literally carried them on his shoulders, and the money was American money. The joint sent the money to him because he was the man responsible. And this was an incredible underground network that nobody knew about, because one person couldn't know about another person because they were afraid. The Soviets would torture people to inform. Terrible torture. Terrible. My grandfather was tortured horribly to inform on others. And many informed. You couldn't ever, the torture was so horrible. Many informed. So the Rebbe would not tell anybody about anybody else's work. It was all in his mind. He couldn't have secretaries and systems. Today they found many, many documents where they discovered what was going on. The incredible, intricate network of hundreds and hundreds of institutions, all secretive underground. But it all seemed futile. People mocked him. They said, Al pi halacha, you're not supposed to do this. You can't do this. You're not mechuyev. It's all futile. Your main thing is you're not going to be effective. You're not going to be successful. It's now 90 years from then. We live now in a very different climate, under completely different circumstances, in a completely new world. But 90 years later, it's worthwhile to ask the question, who won? Who won the battle? This battle, which I would define as Stalin versus Schneerson. Who was victorious in that battle? If you were living in 1927 when this man was arrested, it was very obvious that this conflict was futile. It was hopeless. 90 years later, it's worthwhile to ask this question. Because go today to Russia. Go this Shabbos to the former Soviet Union. I doubt that anybody Shabbos afternoon will be celebrating the legacy and the life of Stalin, of Lenin, of Trotsky, Leon Trotsky, really Leibele Bronstein, of Kaganovich, even of Khrushchev, of Brezhnev. But the mikvahs that the Lubavitcher Rebbe built in 1927, they still stand. If you go today, this summer, 2017, you'll see hundreds of Jewish camps over this country. If you were Lag BaOmer in the Kremlin, the Kremlin was the epicenter of the fight against Yiddishkeit and God. And yet thousands of Jewish children marching with signs, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When communism fell in 1989, 1990, the underground network suddenly emerged. It wasn't born. It remained for 70 years. The sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe maintained it, and when he passed away in 1950, his son-in-law, the Rebbe, continued to maintain it, and it was all secretive. Even in Chabad, nobody knew what was going on. This was all the Rebbe had his network that went on till communism fell in 89 under Gorbachev. And then he sent hundreds of emissaries immediately, dozens and then hundreds of emissaries to Russia to rebuild. Rabbi, when I was in Russia last summer, Rabbi Beryl Lazar, the chief rabbi of Russia, who went there already in 89 or 90 as an ambassador of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, told me, I asked him, how many schools did you guys build? Not underground, above ground schools after communism fell. They built more than 100 yeshivas, 100 schools. And he told me last year, he said, we have more than 120,000 Jewish children who graduated our schools. 120,000 Jews. But it was all the Chassidim, people who for 70 years underground kept the fire burning. Hundreds of schools, hundreds of camps. You go Chanukah, hundreds of menorahs, yeshivas, mikvayas, chadorim, shuls, Jewish community centers, Pesach Zdarim, Chanukah programs, Purim programs, Shiurim, Koilelim, educational centers. Incredible phenomenon. The miracle of the resurrection of Russian Jewry after 70 years of complete persecution and obliteration is one of the great miracles of modern Jewish history. So Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz, the Chag HaGeula of the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe 90 years ago was a watershed moment in the history of Russian Jewry. It basically told them a story. And the story it told them is that there are two narratives in history. There's one narrative on the surface and there's a deeper narrative. When the Lubavitcher Rebbe was fighting Stalin, what was he thinking? I don't know if he thought he will survive. I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I'm not sure. When he was expecting to be in prison, and I'm not sure he was expecting to come out alive. Very few came out alive. So what was he doing? What he was doing was he knew that even if trees are being felled, you have to plant seeds because godliness is eternal. Goodness is eternal. Did he know exactly how it's going to unfold? I don't know if he knew how it's going to unfold, but he knew that his mission is to plant seeds of eternity. And to fight for that which will ultimately triumph, because goodness will triumph. Then it looked hopeless. 90 years later, where's Stalin? Where's Lenin? Where's Trotsky? Where's the Soviet Empire? Where's communism? Where's Marx? Where's Engels? The answer is there in Wikipedia. That's where they are. In Wikipedia, there's a long entry on them. But the mikvahs that the Rebbe built in 27, they're still there. The yeshivas that he built, they're still there. He knew the koyach, the power of Torah and mitzvahs, because it's divine, it's good, and therefore it's eternal. There's so much darkness, but light is essentially eternal because it's rooted in authenticity. Why is that so relevant today for us sitting here? The answer is today we have different challenges, but we also have challenges. And very often people surrender to cynicism, to emotional despair. They give up on themselves. They give up on their communities. They give up on their families. They give up on their marriages. They give up on their souls. They give up on their children. They give up on their happiness. They give up on their power. They give up on their truth. They give up on their integrity. It's easy around yourself, and I don't have to tell the people here, a lot of people, we know we live in a cynical age. People are cynical. They have seen too much. They have seen too much corruption, too much falsehood, too much superficiality, too much lack of integrity. People just surrender to mediocrity. I think that's the word. Reb Mashiach, du weißt, was das meint? Surrender to mediocrity. People become petty. It's just a struggle for survival. It's hard to think big. It's hard to think majestic. You just surrender because it's just what everybody does. You know, you want to live, you survive. You don't thrive, you survive. But what Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz teaches you is that you can have one person fighting a regime of hundreds of millions of people. But because he's an ambassador of Hashem, he's an ambassador of Torah, he's an ambassador of mitzvahs. So the koyach, the light that he implants into the world is infinite. It's limitless. It may take 70 years to emerge, but it emerges. And tonight, 90 years later, Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz is being celebrated literally in communities the world over, including in hundreds of communities in Russia, in Ukraine, in Kazakhstan, yeah? In Uzbekistan, in Siberia. In Siberia. I met at the banquet of the Chabad Shluchim that they have in the winter. I met the Shluchim to Siberia. And the Shliach tells me, he thanked me for the Farbrengens I do in Muncie. He says it comes Yutas Kislev or Yud Beis Tammuz or Yud Shvat or whatever it is, Chanukah, or a holiday, and he sits in Siberia and he wants to have a Sibbe, a Farbrengen, a gathering. So he puts on the video and he tunes in here. And I was thinking to myself, in the 1920s, if you would tell this, Stalin must be turning over in his grave to see in the Kremlin a big Chanukah menorah. Who, mi shama kazois, mi pilul kazois, who heard of this? But this teaches you about the vision of how Chachmei Yisrael, of how tzaddikim, of how a real Rebbe, real Manhigi Yisrael, real Jewish leaders think. They never think short term. They always see long term, and they never surrender to a superficial narrative. They always maintain focus of a deeper narrative, a deeper story. And that focus is one that is extremely inspiring for people today. So lift up your cups and say L'chaim for, first of all, the Jews of Russia. The Jews of Russia who held on to the embers for 70 years, and the moment they had an opportunity, they fanned it into flames. Say L'chaim to a Rebbe who sacrificed everything to ensure that Torah Yiddishkeit will remain eternal. And say L'chaim to the Jewish people and to yourselves for having that courage, that serenity, that vision, that despite all the pressures and all the layers of darkness, they never ever surrendered. L'chaim, 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 L'chaim. Amen. l'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Amen. Amen. Yo, 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 yo. Ay, 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 yo, 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 yo. Ay, 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 The Baal HaGeula, the Rebbe Rayatz, the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, as I mentioned, escaped Nazi-occupied Poland in 1940, in the winter of 1940. And he arrived to the shores of this country, of the United States, Tes Adar Sheni Tovshin, the 9th day of the second month of Adar Tovshin, which was March 1940. The first thing he said when he came off the boat, that night he had a Fabrengen in the Grayston Hotel in Manhattan, and he said a line that became a motto. The line was, Amerika is nicht anders, meaning America is no different. It's hard for us to appreciate this, how many years later, 77 years later, right? But in those days, in 1940 in Tovshin, America was completely different. It was obvious that America was different. America had its own genre, its own Weltanschauung, its own way of life. But he said the Rebbe said America is nicht anders. Now this is important to explain. There were other people who came to America. They also made a statement, but their statement was a little different. Their statement was, Wir seien nicht anders. We're not going to change. Even though we crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and when you cross the Atlantic Ocean, there's new rules, we're not going to change. We won't take off our payas, we won't take off our yarmulkes, we won't take off our beards, we won't take off our garments, we won't change our traditions, our Messiah, our Nusach, our whole lifestyle. Wir seien nicht anders. We won't change. You're in America. America was the Treffen Medina. It was known by, they used to call the Treffen Medina, the non-kosher Medina. Or as one Jewish comedian once said, he said, my father came to America because they told him that the roads in America are paved with gold. The gold in the Medina, the golden country. The roads are paved with gold. He came to the United States and he discovered three things. First of all, the roads are not paved with gold. Second, the roads are not paved at all. And third, he has to pave them. So this opened up his eyes. But despite the facts, a golden in Medina, mir seine nicht anders. The Rebbe Rayatz didn't say we're not going to be different. He said America is nicht anders. America is no different. And that's a whole different idea. It's not just we will remain the way we were. It's that America itself is capable of transformation. Which this is based on the whole idea of the Baal Shem Tov and the Baal HaTanya and Talmidei HaBaal Shem Tov, that heaven and earth are not two separate things, and that ultimately the world itself craves to place its mouth on the mouth of the Jew and declare together Yizgadol v'Yizkadol Shmei Rabbah. Not just you will lock yourself up in a ghetto. You're in America, you'll create an artificial ghetto. And in the artificial ghetto, you won't change. No. The main chiddush is America is nicht anders. America is capable of transformation. This was a revolutionary idea. And the same Mesiras Nefesh that he had to have in the Soviet Union to fight Stalin, in many ways he had to have in America to fight the apathy. Different type of Mesiras Nefesh. Here it wasn't your life is not in danger. Nobody's life is in danger in America. But the danger in America is a different danger. It's the danger of complacency, of apathy, of cynicism, of just getting into the rote, getting into becoming like a robot, like a zombie. It's a different type of commitment and conviction that's necessary when you're here on these shores of the United States. But 77 years later, you see that America has been metamorphosized. It has been transformed. The first Pesach that he was here, a Yid once told me that he was there. His name was Rabbi Folgam and Olav Shalom from Worcester. So he said that at one of the Farbrengens on Pesach or before Pesach, the Rebbe Rayatz said the following word in Hallel. We say in Hallel, in Ma'ashiv, Ono Hashem ki ani avdecha, ani avdecha ben amasecha pitachta l'meseira, l'cha ezbach zavachtoyde v'shem Hashem ekr. So how do people teach Ono Hashem ki ani avdecha? Ono Hashem, please God, please Ono, please Hashem, help me out, ani avdecha, I'm your servant. But the Rebbe Rayatz, the Chabala Geula and the Bala Yom HaYoledus of Yud Beis Tammuz said that's not the meaning. Because Ono Hashem Kani Avdecha, the Ono there is spelled with a Hey, Aleph Nun Hey. Ono Hashem Oishiano, Ono Hashem Atzlichano, it's spelled with an Aleph. Aleph Nun Aleph. Aleph Nun Aleph means Ono. Please, I ask you, I beseech you. Ich bet bei dir. Ono with a Hey, Aleph Nun Hey doesn't mean please. Aleph Nun Hey means what? Where? Parshas Vayishlach, yeah? He's teaching Parshas Vayishlach 40 years. Ono Selech, Vu Geistu. Ono vi, vu, vi. Where? Not please. Ono with an aleph is please. Ono with a hey is where, not please. So what's pshat Ono Hashem kani avdacha? Ono Hashem kani avdacha means something else. David HaMelech says, Ono Hashem, zog mir vu du willst dich soll sein. Ono Hashem, zog mir vu, ki ani avdacha, because I'm your Eved. Wherever you want me to be, just let me know where you want me to be, and I'll embrace that with passion. Essentially, it was a commentary on his own experience, that he had to reinvent his whole life. First, he was in the Soviet Union, he escaped there, and he was in Poland for 10 years, he escaped there, and he had to come to the United States, which was not an easy transition. But Ono Hashem kani avdecha. But the perspective is a perspective that is extremely powerful and extremely empowering. Every person goes through different stages in life. No person, usually a life is not consistent. The only thing that is consistent about life is that it's inconsistent. Now, some people have a special gift that life is mamash a roller coaster. I gave once a speech here on Shabbos afternoon. Why is my life a roller coaster? So I met somebody in the street in the morning on Shabbos. He says, by the way, I'm not coming to your lecture. I said, okay, that's very inspiring for me. It'll boost my self-confidence. But I'm just wondering, why not? He says, what type of stupid title is this? Why is my life a roller coaster? I said, why, you don't relate to it? He says, no, my life is not a roller coaster. My life is straight down all the time. Not a roller coaster. He says, I have no issues. He said, I don't know whose life is a roller coaster. So you have, but every life in this world, life is full of transitions. Life, either it's a roller coaster or it's a Ferris wheel. Or it's a free fall, those free fall in the amusement parks. But life does not, you don't remain in one space. First of all, we constantly change, we grow. You can't compare childhood to teen years, to adulthood, to senior citizenship, etc. Somebody once told me, he said the difference between a 20-year-old and a 40-year-old and a 60-year-old is, when you're 20, you're very self-conscious. You remember when you're 20, who am I not, who's my group, who's my clique, shidduchim, where do I fit in, where I don't fit in, what do they think of me, this type of guy, that type of guy. You're very busy who you are and what they think of you and who's your friend and who's not your friend, etc. He says when you're 40, you reach a certain point in life and you tell yourself, you know what? I don't care what they think of me. You could think whatever you want. You like it, you don't like it. This is who I am. I know you look at me weird. Tough luck. You could jump into the lake. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. He says when you're 60, you realize nobody was ever looking at you. But the fact is that in life we go through transitions. Yeah. What is the ability? What is the koyach? What is the power of a Jew that he could say, Onna Hashem ki ani avdecha? It doesn't matter where I am. You tell me where you want me to be. Today you want me to be here. Tomorrow you want me to be there. It's fine. Ani avdecha. I am your ambassador. I'm your Eved. The Gemara says in Shavuos, Eved melech melech. A servant of a king is a king. I am your Eved. I'm yours. So therefore, wherever you want me to be, I'll go there, and I'll go there with passion. I'll embrace the circumstances with enthusiasm, with joy, with serenity, and with confidence. Ona Hashem, zag me vu du willst, ki ani avdecha. Sometimes people get very frustrated because we stick to a certain model. We're good in particular situations. The moment you take me out of this particular situation, you put me in a different situation, I don't know what hit me and I lose it. That's what David HaMelech says, Ana Hashem. Just tell me where. Wherever you want me to be, I'll retain my full dignity and my full power and my full serenity and my full presence. Why? Ki ani avdach. I am your servant. So I never get stuck to a particular rigid, fixed model. This is what life looks like. Wherever you send me, that's what life looks like. Today you send me here, I'll be here. I am your ambassador. I'm an ambassador of infinity. I'm an ambassador of God, and I'm an ambassador of love and light and hope. An ambassador. You sent me here, I'll represent you here. You send me here, I'll represent you here. That way, the flux of life, the roller coaster of life, the ups and downs, the vicissitudes, all of the shinuyim and the changes don't affect the core. What does it say by Sarah? Vayiyu chaya Sarah meir shana v'esrim shana v'sheva shana zakrashi kulon shavin l'toiva. They were all identical in goodness. They were all identical. Sarah's life was not uniform. There were times she was flying high. There were times she was in the abyss. 90 years she was waiting for a child, and then the baby was born. You can't compare the first years to the later years. There was a time she was abducted by Paray and in his palace. Before she got married to Avram, her life was full of fluctuation. But kulam shavim in one point, the toiva. She was always a good person. Her dignity was always shining. The circumstances were different. Everybody's circumstances are different. But there was a shavim, there was a theme, a thread that permeated all her years. And that was the toiva. And that was the story of this, of the Baal HaGeula. Kani avdecha. Sometimes it's in one extreme. Sometimes it's in Russia. Sometimes it's in America. Different extremes. But wherever I am, oh no, I'm yours. I belong to you. I represent you. And therefore, in every situation, I bring the best out of the situation. Where do you have this in halacha? The pasuk says in Emer, right? L'kachtem lachem b'yom harishon pri eitz hadar kapes tmarim anaf eitz avos arvei nachal. The first of the daled minim of the four species is pri eitz hadar is an esrog. Smachtem lefnei Hashem alakechem shiva samim. You celebrate before God 7 days. So apparently these four species have a power to create simchas, joy. Why? Okay, so it's not sukkahs now, so we won't get into the details. But I want to bring out the 1 point pri eitz hadar. It doesn't say what it is. So the Gemara in Sukkah gives different explanations how we know pri eitz hadar means an esrog. It's a beautiful fruit. Pri Eitz Hada means a tree, a fruit from a beautiful tree. No, maybe it's a cherry. Cherries are also nice, no? Some people like watermelons. They think they're nice. So I never saw a person come sukkahs with a watermelon. There's no such a thing as a reform esrog. Reform, a conservative esrog, a reconstructionist esrog, a renewal esrog, a Haredi esrog, a Chassidish esrog. Everybody's the same esrog, the same citrus. So the Gemara, how do you know from Pri Eitz Hada it's an esrog? So one of the explanations in Masechta Sukkah is Pri Eitz Hada, there's no nekudus in the Sefer Torah. So Hada you could read Hadar. Pri Eitz Hadar. So the Gemara, Hadar bi lanoi mishana l'shana. It lives on the tree from year to year, meaning most fruits at a particular season, it falls off. Or you pick it, or it falls off, or it rots. It's conducive to grow in certain climates, and then the season changes, that's it. It's time to take it off the tree. If not, it's going to fall off, or it's going to rot, it's going to decompose. An esrog is unique. It lives on the tree from year to year. It could remain in a tree 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. That's why you have esrogim that are huge. You ever saw? Because it remains on the tree. Not only does it remain on the tree, it grows on the tree and it continues to grow. In other words, the different seasons and climates don't cause the tree to become decomposed. On the contrary, the tree grows from all the climates. Pri Eitz Hadar. Hadar bi'ilana. What's the secret of joy? The secret of joy is some people in certain seasons they do well. You put them in another season, they're done. Some people, they're winter people. Some people are spring. Spring, they have Tchiyas HaMesim. Till the spring, they're depressed. They hibernate in the caves like bears. Spring, summer comes, and suddenly they emerge. They move to Muncie. They start coming here for weekends. We start seeing them. Suddenly they have Tchiyas HaMesim. A whole winter, they're obnoxious. They're depressed somewhere in Brooklyn. Spring and summer, they suddenly come here. They become mentioned. Such people. Some people, they're winter people. When it's summer, they go crazy. They can't live with heat. In America, you go into an air conditioner the whole day. But they can't live with heat. In the winter, suddenly they become alive. They love it. The trees die and they come to life. Yeah, some people like the real winter. They like the autumn is not good enough. They like the fall. They like the winter. Some people, summer, it's too hot. They're different seasons, psychologically, emotionally. Yeah. An esrog maintains itself throughout all the seasons. But not only it maintains itself, it grows from all the seasons. Winter causes it to grow. Fall causes it to grow. Autumn causes it to grow. Spring causes it to grow. Summer, it grows from all the seasons. Each season contributes, it promotes to its growth. That's Simcha. Ona Hashem, tell me where. Ki ani avdecha. When you define yourself as avdecha, then no circumstances break you. Every situation teaches you something. Every situation, every condition in life helps you grow in a particular way. Different types of growth, different experiences. But there's no situation that you become paralyzed in. This I can't grow, I fall off the tree. That's what the Rebbe said. Ona Hashem ki ani avdach. So every person in their own life, as you plunge, go to this experience, that experience, it's very easy to lose your equilibrium, to lose it and to surrender to a sadness or a depression. We also have to be able to say, tell me where you want me to be, and I'll go. And I'll be able to maintain my dignity there and my koyach and my light and my love and my depth and my wisdom and my soulfulness. Why? Because I'm your servant. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. No Oy kein bakodesh chazi sichal hirais uscha chevaydecho kein bakodesh chazi sichal hirais uscha Uchavoidecho Kein ba'kodesh Chazi sicho Hirais uscha Uchavoidecho Ya 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 ay 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 ya baba yo ya ya ba ya 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 ay 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 ya 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 Tzamad Kama lecha b'sori Tzama lecha nafshi Kama Schneider Marco la 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 tokara bismar khni duri Marco shtatia de Schneider Marco kuplayish ne prodayish hey zama nafshi makam la khabsoni Kama ayedai deleram bam bam deleram bam ayedai deleram bam bam la It's known that the Apter Rav was known as the Oyev Yisrael. The Avram Yeshua Heschel of Apter was known, his Sefer on Chumash is called Oyev Yisrael, the lover of Israel, because he was, it's a chekach, he was very into Avos Yisrael. He once said that every parsha in the whole Torah, every single parsha is all about Avos Yisrael. Every parsha from beginning to end is all about Avos Yisrael. So there was somebody there who said, it's Parshas Balak. Where do you have Balak and Balak Avos Yisrael? So he said, what do you mean? The name of the parsha, Balak. And says, where's the Balak Avos Yisrael? He says, the name, Balak. Balak is a Rosh Tevis. It's an acronym, Balak. V'yahavta l'reacha kamoicha. Balak, yeah? Vez v'yahavta, lamed l'reacha, kuf is kamoicha. This guy says, this is how all Hasidim work. So basically, the Altz is shtick. Altz is with a schwindlerei, with a stickerei. It says, v'yahavta is with a vav. Balak is with a vez. Kamoicha is with a chaf, a kaf. Balak is with a kuf. What it was? The Apter Rav said, as kommt zu v'haftlericha kamoicha darf man nicht so medayek sein im Praten. When it comes to loving somebody else, you don't have to get so nitty gritty. You don't have to get into the details. Darf nicht so medayek sein im Praten. If you start getting into the nitty gritty, into the details, you might end up with nothing. In other words, the Apter Rav, I can speculate quite with certainty, he knew that Balak is not the spelling of a Haftalalecha Kamoicha exactly. But he wanted to teach this person a lesson. He wanted to teach this person a lesson. So, a Yid once came to the Rebbe Rayatz, to the Balagula, and he had a taina. His taina was, he said, you're Makarev Yidden, you're Makarev, you bring close to yourself Jews, that the halacha about them is Moiridin V'loi Mailan. It's a certain category of Jews, minim, apikursim, real heretics, real apostates, real koifrim, who completely deny God and Judaism, the Ein Lahem Chelik B'Elokei Yisrael. And the halacha in Shulchan Aruch is Moiridin V'loi Mailan, you completely reject them. And you, not only don't you reject them, you're makan of them, you're nice to them. This is what he asked him. So the Rebbe Rayatz told him that the halachas of these halachas in Shulchan Aruch there's a seder, there's Orach Chaim, Yoreh Deah, Even HaEzer, Choshen Mishpat. Choshen Mishpat is the last section, and these halachas are at the end of Choshen Mishpat. So he says, you first learn Orach Chaim, Yoreh Deah, Even HaEzer, Choshen Mishpat. When you finish Choshen Mishpat, you come to those Simonim, come back to me. At first glance, it's a strange response, because it's at the end of Choshen Mishpat, so therefore it's not relevant. Person is going to say, I don't have to do Hilchas Shabbos because I didn't finish yet Orach Chaim, the first Chelek. What's the answer? The point is this. He wasn't trying to answer this question. He was trying to help this person. It's an interesting thing with you, he says. There's a big Shulchan Aruch. Why do you find your passion in the Simonim at the end of Choshen Mishpat? Why don't you find your passion in Simonim about Avos Yisrael? That doesn't have to do with Shulchan Aruch. That has to do with yourself. Some people have midas royas. They're not refined people. They don't work on themselves. So wherever there's a siman in Shulchan Aruch that speaks about sucking blood, suddenly they become God-fearing. Wherever they can find in Yiddishkeit something where you can stab somebody, you can make a macha, you can kill somebody, you can destroy somebody, suddenly they become tzaddikim. Why don't you have the same koch in positivity? It's not the Shulchan Aruch I'm looking for. It's not God I'm looking for. I'm looking for an outlet for my hashchasa, for my issues. I use God as a crutch to be able to express my grobkeit, my bruteness. The Rebbe was trying to help him. He wasn't busy defending himself. He wasn't his Rav or Rebbe that he had to defend himself, why he's Mekarev, who he's Mekarev. He knew what he was doing up in Shulchan Aruch. And he was not going to go into a debate with this person what his heter to be Makar of these Yidden are. He was trying to help this person. He was like, why is it that the last simonim of Choshe Mishpat, here is where you become alive, you become happy. We can kill somebody, Baruch Hashem, Shechiyanu v'Keimanu v'Yiganu Lizman Hazeh. Some people, there's a macha, they come to life. Yeah, they said there was once one Rav who told another Rav, Lama machen achdus, let's make unity. He says, yeah, but I'm kegen vemen. Against whom? Some people come to life. He says, that's the issue. Something strange here. If you care about Hashem, then you would care also about positive things. Where there's certainly certain mitzvahs where you should be positive, where you should embrace somebody else. So here's an interesting story that happened once. So a Yid I know, his name is Mendel Baumgarten. He lives in Brooklyn. And in the 40s, he lived in Bronzeville. Bronzeville was a famous neighborhood. A lot of Jews lived there in Brooklyn. Not far from Crown Heights. And he lived in Bronzeville, and there was a Jew over there who lived in Bronzeville. This is in the 40s, in the 1940s. This was still in the life of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz. And he always would make cynical comments about the Rebbe Rayatz. He would mock him, he would make fun. He had all these, these wise cracks, wise comments. Always, constantly. One Shabbos, out of the blue, he gets up at the Bima, and he says he wants to ask Mechila publicly forgiveness from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, for all of his comments. He apologizes. He wants to do tshuva. So strange. After davening, Mendel Baumgarten went over to him. He was a young bacher, and he says, "What inspired you suddenly?" He says, "I'll tell you. I wasn't here for a while." Yeah. He says, "What happened?" He says, "He developed some illness. He got very sick. This is like 47, 48, 49, the Tovshins, after the war, and he got very sick, and he needed a lot of medical help." He had some savings. He had to quit his job. He couldn't work. And all of his savings he used for his medical help, for his medicine. Anyway, he got healthy, but he had no money. He was broke. He was really, really broke. He had nothing to, no seed money to start off with. So he decided to ask for tzedakah. So he put in an ad in one of the Yiddish newspapers. There were a lot of Yiddish newspapers then, dailies. You had the Tog, you had the Morgen Journal, you had the Farvitz, Amerikaner. Then the Yiddish, all the immigrants spoke Yiddish, so this was their ticket. This was their entry into American culture. So he puts in an ad in one of the newspapers, I think it was the Morgen Journal, the morning journal it was called, the Morgen Journal. He puts in an ad, a Yid daf hilf. A Jew needs help with a telephone number. You open up a newspaper and you see a Yid daf hilf, a Jew needs help. What do most people think? Ich darf euch helfen. He needs help. I also need help. I also have mortgages to pay and tuitions to pay and camp to cover and food to purchase for Shabbos, etc. Ich darf euch helfen, right? And in the newspaper, if you don't get it that day, it's already tomorrow. It's already over a bottle manailam. Today's news, tomorrow it's dustbin. It's in the garbage. My grandfather used to say that everything that says in the newspaper is a lie. Everything, even the date. It was printed yesterday. You can't trust anything in a newspaper. But certainly today's news, tomorrow it belongs in the garbage. So he says, Ayid daf hilf. He puts in an ad. He says to Mendel Baumgarten, he says, how many people you think called? Not one call. I didn't get even one call. A Jew needs help, Shine, big deal. Nobody called. I was very disappointed. I thought somebody would call. So a few days later, I get a call from the secretary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This is the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz. Yes. He says the Rebbe was reading, and he saw this little ad, Ayid daf hilf, a Jew needs help. So he asked me to call you up and say, what's the problem? What do you need? So I told him. So he sent me money. So that's why this Shabbos I got up to ask forgiveness. Ayid daf hilf. You see an ad, Ayid daf hilf. It's not your brother, it's not your father, it's not your nephew, it's not your child, it's not your brother-in-law. Ayid daf hilf. A Jew needs help. He calls up, he says, how can I help you? And he sends him help. Heint is da, Sach Yidden was dafin hilf. Some of them put in ads in the newspapers, and some don't. But it's something to learn from. It's not your relative, it's not your shevet, it's not your community, it's not your kehillah, it's not your nusach. But a real Rebbe, a real Manig Yisrael, a leader of the Jewish people, might not come in who he is. A Yid Afil, if he helps him. There was a Yid, his name was Rosenblum, Yud of Chaim Rosenblum. He was a chassid. He came out of Russia. He left Russia after the Lubavitcher Rebbe left Russia. Lubavitcher Rebbe left in 1927. After he came out of prison, half a year later, he left Russia. After Sukkot Peches, 1927, the end of 27. This man came out much later. So he came out, there was no, there couldn't be regular correspondence. Russia was, as I said before, was sealed. It was closed off. As Churchill said, you had the Iron Curtain, Mechitza Shel Barzel. He came out, there were a lot of Hasidim who asked him to mention them to the Rebbe. So he had to remember the names, because if he would have written the names, he could be arrested and sent to Siberia, where you have all these hundreds of names. He had to remember all the names. There was a family that had a baby, a new baby, and they asked him to mention the family and also the baby. He was going into the Rebbe, and he was thinking about all the names, and he realized that this baby, he forgot the name. He forgot the name of the baby. He knew the mother's name, but he forgot the name of the baby. So he thought, what should he do? Should he mention the baby and say he forgot the name? Probably cause pain to the Rebbe. He won't mention the baby. He'll mention everybody else besides the baby. And hopefully the baby will be fine. The baby will be fine. So he goes in and he mentions all the families and everybody he remembers, or whatever he had, his simonim, to remember all the names. And then he came to this family from Russia. And he goes through the whole family, the father and the mother and all the children, the names, the mother's name, and he mentions them to the Rebbe. He finishes. So the Rebbe Rayat says, Mer is nishta in the mishpacha? There's no more in this family? So he says, I'll tell you the truth. There's one more. There's a baby, but I forgot. I forgot the name. So I thought, what do I have to say? I forgot the name. What's the telefon? I just won't mention the baby. We'll hope Hashem will help. The baby will be all right. So the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayat looks at him and says, Wie ist Shaykh soll's vergessen den Namen von a Yiddish Kind? How could you forget the name of a Jewish child? Wie ist Shaykh soll's vergessen den Namen von a Yiddish Kind? He remembered this for the rest of his life. That he remembered for the rest of his life. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Rosenblum, he was a Chassidish Yid, he was a Chassid. Wie ist Shaykh soll's vergessen den Namen von a Yiddish Kind? Yeah. So you forget your own name. You forget where you are. So I know how it's shaykh to forget the name of a Jewish child. It's not such a question, right? We know how it's shaykh. Some people don't remember the name of their own brother. They don't remember. They may know the name, but they choose to forget. What do they say? Al chet shechatonu lefonecha biyoidim ubelo yoidim. So Chassidim used to say, what's prat biyoidim ubelo yoidim? Me weist, ab me macht sich nicht wissendig. Biyoidim. You know, but below yoidim, you make believe you don't know. I asked once somebody, was machst du? He tells me, ich mach sich nicht wissendig. How are you? He says, was machst du? In Yiddish, what are you doing? So he says, ich mach sich nicht wissendig. I make believe I don't know. But this was a question, me'umke the liba from the heart. How is it possible that you don't know the name of a Jewish child? How is it possible? It was once that in 1933, Tafresh Tzaddik Gimel, the Rebbe Rayat was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, and he suffered from it for the rest of his life, and the last 17 years of his life. And he suffered a lot from it, physically and emotionally. It was very difficult for him. It was once, one of the mornings, he was in Poland then. He fell off his bed. He fell off hard from his bed. One of his secretaries, his name was Reb Chatzah Fagin, Rabbi Cheskel Fagin, who was later burnt with his family by the Germans in Riga, in Latvia, in the middle of the war. But he was a secretary for many years. Rabbi Cheskel Fagin, he was a very big Jew, a Dohibin Yid. He heard the bang He heard the klop in their bedroom. So he ran in, and he sees that Rebbe Rayatz fell off his bed, and he's on the floor. And he saw that he's laughing, he's smiling. He saw that he was in pain, but he saw he's smiling. He called the doctor. He broke his arm. He broke, and they gave him a cast. He had to have it for a long time. The doctor said that the bone was broken so badly, it must have been very painful. You know, a broken bone is extremely painful. But he said the break was so bad, it must have been excruciatingly painful. And he's very surprised how the Rebbe controlled himself. So after a while, Reb Chatzka went into the Rebbe and he said, I have a question. I understand moyach shalit al halev. The mind rules the heart, and you're a self-controlled person, so you weren't screaming. Most people would scream. You weren't screaming. You were in control. But why were you laughing? What was the grace of simcha? Why were you laughing? So the Rebbe told him that this Rosh Hashanah, past Rosh Hashanah, in the middle of davening, he saw that something bad is going to happen. He saw something negative is going to happen. And he said, a whole year I was worried that it's going to happen to one of the Chassidim. He said, when it happened to me, it happened to me, I knew that was it, I was happy. That's what made my simcha. What does all of this teach us in our own lives? It teaches us today we live in a time where every person can be an ambassador of love and of kindness to somebody. On your block where you live, there's a teenager who can use a hug. There's a young man, a young woman, an older man, an older woman, an older person, a younger person who can hear words of kindness, words of inspiration, words of chizuk, words of empowerment. Ayid daf hilf. Ayid daf hilf. Yidin daf and hilf. Very often people think, I have my own saddas, I have my own pekel, I have my own headache, what do I have to deal with it? But when you're truly in touch with the emes of Torah, with the emes of Yiddishkeit, that Kol Yisrael Achim, all Jews are brothers, so then Balak is also V'ahavta l'recha kamoicha. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Who sagt l'chaim? Achle lekim doimi nafshi. Oh, yedai dere ya 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 yo yedai yedai yo yenam dere ya ya yo yenam ya. No, yeda, yeda, ya, yo, yena, yo, yena, ay, 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 yena, ya, 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 yo, ya, ya, yo. Oh, yenam, ya 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 yenam, oh yo, ya ya yo yenam, oh yenam, ay 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 ay, oh ya. And the way me now she kimi meno sikva avsi oh ya sorry me shu avsi me zga
Yeah.
Say this niggin, you know, this niggin was composed in honor of Yud Beis Tammuz. After the Chag HaGeula, Yud Beis Tammuz, the Aaron Charetonov from Nikolaev was one of the biggest composers in Chabad. The Charetonov family in Nikolaev composed hundreds of nigunim. A lot of nigunim that people sing are their nigunim. For example, there's a Chabad nigunim. A lot of the nigunim are theirs. So after Yud Beis Tammuz, he composed this niggin called Niggin LeYud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz. What's the connection between this niggin and Yud Beis Tammuz? So for this, you have to hear the niggin. Every niggin has a whole story behind it. So listen to the niggin and then see what's the connection. Ya 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 ya. Ya 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 na ya na ya 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 You see the connection? I'll explain to you. The niggin has 3 stanzas. The first one is more calm. Person is going through life a little up and down, ups and downs, but more or less it's ganz glatt, it's pretty smooth. At this point you can take a nap. Can gehen schlafen. You finish the Shabbos meal, Segid, gekocht in a safe, alles is good. You're complete, more or less, right? But then comes the second stanza. So schlaft sich schon nicht. Ja, baba, ja, mam, oh, Suddenly the person encounters, this is the connection to the story, obstacles and challenges from within, from without, and all the yisoidus of the person are shaken up. The person is shaken up to his or her core. Everything looked good, everything looked perfect, everything was smooth. Glat kasha, mahadrim in mahadrim. Everything good. Badat, Eida, Chredus, all's good. But suddenly there's an obstacle. He didn't realize it came from left field. It's very easy at this point for the person to break. So now comes the third stanza. The third stanza is the koyach of Mesiras Nefesh, the power of real conviction, of real strength of a neshama. It's even more. The obstacles, the challenges bring out a much deeper part, a much deeper dimension of the person. His koiches ne'elomim. Every person has hidden faculties, hidden powers that come out. And sometimes the crises bring out those koiches. So that means a person never has to get misspal, never has to be affected by all different types of challenges and darkness that comes their way, and they want to give up. They thought their life was smooth, and suddenly, you can hear the words. What happened suddenly? What do you want? Leave me alone. It was much better without you. Now, there's not always an answer to that question. Like we're learning in the morning in Likkutei Torah, there's no answer. But the response is more emotional, experiential. Bye 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 bye. Ay ba ba ay ba ay 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 na ay 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 ba ba ay ba ay ba ba ay ba ay 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 ya ba ba ya ba ya ba ba ya ba ya yo ya na ya yo ya ba ba ya ma ba oh ya ba ba mam ya 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 oh ya baba ay la 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 ya 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 la ya la 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 ya 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 la ya la mama mama la 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 mama ya ba ya la mama mama Ram mam 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 ram mam ya ba ram mam mam ram mam mam ya ba ram ya ya ram mam 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 Sie haben nicht gewusst. Wer nicht. Sehr gut. Yud Beis Tammuz, Tovshin Yud Aleph, 1951, was the first Yud Beis Tammuz after the Rebbe assumed the leadership a year after his Shver, the Rebbe Rayatz passed away. So the Fabrengen, he told a story that he heard from his father-in-law about an Asifis HaRabbonim, a meeting of Rabbonim that happened in Tofresh Ayin, 1910, I think it was in Vilna. In one of the cities in Russia, Lithuania, there was a huge meeting of many rabbis, and there was a critical question that came up then. The issue was that the Russian government, it was the Tsarist government, wanted to impose on all the Jewish communities that in order for a rabbi to be able to serve as a rabbi, he has to have a secular education and has to be fluent in Russian, because really the objective was they wanted that the rabbis should be on a different plateau. They should compromise their standards. So they wanted to expel and alienate all the older rabbonim. They wanted only rabbis that are fluent in Russian and fluent in Russian literature. This was the question. The issue that was debated, and they had to take a vote. The Sar HaPnim, the interior minister, notified that if they're not going to vote pro, he's going to make pogroms in 101 cities. He's going to make pogroms. So there was a huge meeting, and they had a spy from the government present at the meeting. There were different perspectives. Different Rabbanim had different perspectives. And Reb Chaim Soloveitchik was there, Reb Chaim Brisker was there, Reb David Kalin was there, I think the Chafetz Chaim was there, many of the big G'dolei Yisrael of the time, and the Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab was also there, and his son. He was there with his son and some other people. It was huge, great personalities were there. The Rashab saw that the vote might be that they should allow the Russian government to issue forth this decree, because at the surface it seemed benign, it didn't seem so terrible. So he asked to speak last. He spoke last, and when he got up, he said, in the drasha, in his speech, he said a few things. One of the things he said was something that his son repeated when he left prison on Gimel Tammuz, Tafresh Pei Zayin, on the way to exile. He said, as the Yiddish Guf is ibegegeben geworden in Galus, nicht the Neshama. When Hashem sent the Jewish people to Galus, to exile, He only sent their bodies, not their souls. In other words, Hashem made a decree that the Jewish body, the physical presence of the Jewish people, should be in exile. But not their Jewish soul, not the consciousness of the Jewish people, not their soul. The spirit, he said, is never in exile. It was... This given a chesaron. In other words, the whole idea of Golus is only the guf was given over to Golus in Shibud Malchias. But the neshama of Klal Yisrael was never given over to Golus. So he said, nobody can control the soul of the Jewish people. Nobody has that right. Hashem never gave anybody that right. He said, Al tigui b'meshichai, don't touch the Mashiach, the Tinoika Shal Beis Rabban, the chinuch of the Jewish people. Don't touch it, don't affect it, don't contaminate it. Don't touch Yiddish stolz, the Jewish pride, the Jewish dignity, Jewish faith. This he spoke at length. And then he said, Yidden, Zait Mekadesh Shem Shemayim Berabim. Sanctify the name of Hashem publicly, and he fainted. The Rebbe Rashab fainted. They revived him, and they arrested him. The Tsarist regime immediately arrested him. He was staying in a hotel. He wasn't home, he was staying in a hotel. So they arranged for house arrest. House arrest meant that he had to remain there for a while and couldn't leave. House arrest, you have to be in the house, which happened to be a hotel. That's where he had to be, and he wasn't allowed to leave. They had a guard by the door, not to let him leave. That night, the Rebbe said, Reb Chaim Brisker, who was Ga'ana Goyim, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, and he was a very close friend to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, to the Rebbe Rashab. Reb Chaim Brisker and the Rebbe Rashab were very, very close, extremely close. They went to many meetings together. They worked together very closely, even though they came from different worlds. Chaim Brisker was the Lithuanian, the ambassador of, the Litvische Yidden, the world of the Misnagdim, and the Rebbe Rashab was the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but they got along very, very close. They really had a respect for each other. So he came to visit that night in the hotel. He walks in, and he sees that the Rebbe Rashab is weeping. He's crying. So he says, this is how the Rebbe said. He says, Lubavitcher Rebbe, was weint er? Why are you crying? Miram getan als, was miram gekent han. Jetzt ist es toll in dem Ebersten. There's no reason for you to cry. We did whatever we can. Because he voted that way, the Rebbe voted that way. We did whatever we can. Now it's up to God. Why are you crying? He felt that he was crying as though, he was remorseful. He was having charata, he was doing tshuva, he felt bad. He said, you have to know your conscience is clear. You did whatever you could do. We did whatever we can do. Now it's up to Hashem. You have to be able to be satisfied with that. So the Rebbe Rashab answered, and he gave him a whole mashal, a metaphor, a parable, to explain what he was feeling. And the mashal went like this. He said there's a big difference in life between an employee and an owner, a balabas. Meaning, if you come in the middle of the day to an office, you have the boss sitting in one office, and his employee is sitting in another office, and they're both working. He's a good guy. He's a ish neman, masoyu matone be'emunah. He's a trustworthy person. He puts in 9 to 5. He sits 9 to 5. He does his job. He's not on the phone. He's not on the internet. He doesn't surf the web. He doesn't check this and check that, and goes for lunch for 3.5 hours. He's a real loyal employee, according to all the halachas and Choshen Mishpat of Hilchas Schirus. And he does his job. So if you walk into the office, you may not know the difference. Who is the balabas, who is the owner, and who's the employee. When the day is over, they go home. They both go home, and everybody does their thing. You also don't know what's the difference. He says, where do you see the difference? Not when you come during work hours. The difference you see when the business is going bankrupt. It's a gate bankrupt. It's not going well. And here's the difference. You come in the middle of the day, you won't see a distinction. The owner is working, the employee is working. The difference you'll see when the day is over and they go home. The employee goes home. He knows that the business is going down the drain. But he enjoys dinner. He enjoys the bath. He enjoys the jacuzzi. He enjoys a twig of beer. Whatever he enjoys. Why? Even though the business is going down the drain, he knows he did what he had to do. He's an honest person. He's loyal. He put in his hours. Now he goes home to his family. It's time to relax and to enjoy life. He says, but if you come to the owner, he says, ess nicht, schlaf nicht. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. Why? He also did whatever he can do. The answer is, weil es sein Asik. It's his business. It's his business. A person, Khalila, has a child who's not well. They go to the doctor. The doctor is a good doctor. Checks him out. Works with the child. But then it comes the time the appointment is over. The doctor goes home. The parent at night is thinking about it. The middle of the night, they're not sleeping. They're dreaming about it. They wake up early in the shower, in the bathtub, in the middle of bed. Wherever they go, they're thinking about it. Why? Because it's your child. It's your business. It's dein Azach. That's where you see the difference. The employee says, my conscience is clear, and he's right. He did whatever he can. He takes his paycheck, he goes home. The owner, the balabas, says, you're right. I did everything I can. But the business is going down the drain, and it's his business. It's his child. So the Rebbe Rashab tells Reb Chaim Brisker, he says there's two types of Jews. There's a Jew who's an employee. He has a contract with God. He does what he has to do. He finished doing what he has to do. His conscience is clear. The business is going down the drain. It's not his problem. It's not his fault. He didn't cause the business to go down the drain. There's an owner. His name is Hashem. Yavai Bala Kenem. Let the owner come and deal with his vineyard. It's not my problem. I did what I have to do. Olam haba I get. Schar I get. I follow the contract. I did everything. When I'm going to be accounted for, I showed up on time. I get my paycheck. All's good and fine. All good. That's if you're an employee. If you're the owner, it's your thing. It's your child. You're right. Nobody has kindness to you. Nobody tells the owner you didn't put in a full day. You put in a full day. Aber es schlaft sich nicht. He can't just go to sleep. Why? Because it's his, and he knows it's not working. And even if he falls asleep, he wakes up 10 times in the middle of the night. So the Rebbe Rashab tells Reb Chaim, he says, Emes, we did whatever we can. Emes, you're right. Aber der Inyan hat sich nicht abgetan. But the objective wasn't accomplished. And because the objective wasn't accomplished, therefore I'm crying. It's not that I feel that I'm guilty. I don't feel I'm guilty. It's not that I'm afraid that I'm going to be punished. I'm not going to get my reward. I'm not going to get my paycheck. No, I'm going to get everything I deserve. Aber the Inyan hat sich nicht abgetan. I'm bothered by the fact that the mission was not accomplished. To give an example, maybe another example. I don't know how many of you go to games, but those few who go to games understand this example from experience, and even the others will understand the marshal. When you go to a game, let's say a baseball game or football game, whatever it is, you have two groups. There are the spectators, the fans, and there are the players. What's the difference? The fans, you can have 30,000 spectators sitting in the stadium. You can have 50,000. And they come with beer and with hot dogs and with mustard and with Pepsi and Coca-Cola and potato chips. And they sit and they cheer on, yay, boo, yay. A game, sports, a game, mischak. Man kommt sich spielen, man kommt zu einer großen game. And they come and they watch, and it's wonderful, they're enjoying themselves. And what happens if their team is losing horribly? At some point, they may get up and go home. I had enough of the game. They go home. What about the player? The player, if his team is losing, he can't say, you know what, I had enough of the game, I'm going home. He continues to play b'chol koichai, with all of his might, with all of his soul. Why? You're losing. The answer is it's his game. It's his game. Because it's his game, so it's not if he's winning he plays, and if he's losing he doesn't play. The spectator, he's detached. My team is winning, I'm in. My team is losing, I'm out. The player doesn't have to do, my team is losing, my team is winning. I'm not a spectator, I'm not a fan, I'm not a detached observer. I own it. This is my game. It's two different types of experiences. There are Jewish spectators. Fans, they're fans. They read the websites. They're fans, they want the team to win. And then there are players. The question you have to ask yourself in life is, if you're a spectator or you're a player. We have a lot of fans, we have a lot of spectators. They watch. The team is winning, great. The team is losing, they go home. They say there are three types of people, right? There are people who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who ask what happened. You have to decide which one you are. So the Rebbe Rashab tells Reb Chaim, he says, you're right. Aber the Inyan hat sich nicht abgetan. You have two types of Jews. You have a Jew, his relationship with Yiddishkeit, he's a contractor. He's on a contract. He has a contract. I work for you. I'm done. Shachris, checklist, boom. Mincha, checklist. If you could do plag, Mincha Ma'ariv together, Achitov. You check off Mincha Ma'ariv, Basachas, Amachaya. Okay, you have a problem because Krishma you have to do later. Okay, Nish Geferlich, it's 2-3 minutes. But the main thing is the checklist. Off. You were Yoitze, done. You're going to get Olam Haba. You're going to get Livyasan. You're going to get Sher Habar. You're going to get 310 worlds. Shin Yud Olamaz. Alt is good. You checklist. You came to the Tish. Yeah, you came to the Tish. It was good. Checklist. Fine. You accepted. You're a good guy. Bein Adam Lamalka, Bein Adam Lachavera. You're a good guy. That's one type of person. He's on a contract. I work for you. I do what I have to do. I want to get what I want to get. And that's it. That's the relationship. That's one type of relationship. In other words, ultimately it's about my reward. It's about what I want to get out of it. It's about me fulfilling my obligations. I should be able to say, I fulfilled my duties. The whole Yesod of Teres Abal Shem Tov, the whole Yesod of Teres Achsidus, is a different approach. It's not that I am here to fulfill my duty. Yeah, obviously, you're an employee, you got to do what you got to do, you're an honest person. It's my thing. I'm not an employee, I'm an owner, I'm a balabos. I care for the product itself. It's not I care for my conscience to be clear. No one can have complaints to me. I care about the truth of the issue. It's a whole different idea. In other words, Yiddishkeit is relevant to me. It's relevant to my core. If something is failing, it's not that I comfort myself and say, I did what I can. It's not up to me. Fine, you're right, you did what you can. But the Inyan hat sich nicht abgetan. The Inyan hat sich nicht abgetan means, but the mission wasn't accomplished. Very often you have today's situations, there's a lot of challenges in a lot of different areas. People comfort themselves and they say, I do what I have to do. I'm not obligated to do anymore. And you know what? You're right. You're right. You're not obligated. You have a checklist. You're going to get everything you have to get. Everything is wonderful. Aber the Inyan hat sich nicht abgetan. But the bottom line is, these people are still suffering. The challenges are here. So what is it going to help? You're going to comfort yourself. You did what you have to do. Okay. Nobody is going to have kindness to you. You're free. But still your child is suffering. And Geschmacke Meise brings out this idea. When the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a little boy, he lived in a city called, he was born in Nikolaev in Ukraine, and then his father became the chief Rebbe of Yekaterinoslav. Today it's called Dnepropetrovsk. I told you the communists changed all the names. Yekaterinoslav was named after Catherine. They couldn't deal with names of czars, so they had to change the name, so it became Dnepropetrovsk. Dnepropetrovsk, it's near the Dnieper. That's what it's called till today. That's where he grew up as a child. So his father was a Rav there, Levi Yitzchak Shneur. So once his mother, it was a hot summer day, it gets very hot, there was a hot summer day, his mother took him to the beach, his mother took him to the ocean to cool off, to go into the water. And the Rebbe was a little boy, and he was wearing a big kappel, he was wearing a big yarmulke. And it was very, very hot, and it was a big kappel, it was a big yarmulke, so he was sweating. So this Jew walks by the beach, he walks by and he sees this little kid in this big yarmulke. So he says, Ingala, nemar up the kappel. Take off the yarmulke. Take it off. It'll be easier for you. It'll be cooler. So the Rebbe, little kid, tells him, Betarnish, san aveda. You're not allowed to take off the yarmulke. It's a wrong thing to take off the yarmulke. He says, Ingala, di aveda nemechav zich. This sin of taking over the yarmulke, I'm taking on myself. You won't be responsible. I'll be responsible. The Rebbe says, L'maynaf gemina. L'maynaf gemina vetut aveda. L'maynaf gemina. What's the difference? You teufels? Butzim mekat v'yediyah. Verstehst? L'maynaf gemina. I come to you, I say, all your avedas are on me. If Judaism is about me, my olam haba, it's a big nafkamina. I'm not going to burn in purgatory. You're going to burn. I'm a chaya. Wonderful. Take all my avedas and go. Lech lazazel v'ani elech. V'izak mezah tarnagel yelech. V'ani elech l'chayim toyim aruchim. I'm a chaya. Gesundheit. You want to take some more avedas? Noch besser. That's all if you're busy with the world of cheshbonos, of calculations. It's all about my reward, my contract. I fulfilled the contract. Okay, you take it on you, fine. It's like you come into the job. You say, this job is on me. You're not responsible to the boss. Okay, great. You're going to be penalized. But if what's relevant to you is the truth, l'may nafkamina. L'may nafkamina. So he takes it on himself. L'may nafkamina. It's a whole different approach. It's a different perspective. In other words, it's relevant to me. What does Yehuda tell Yosef? Yosef wants to take Binyamin as a slave. He wants to take him as an eved. He stole his goblet. The kid is a ganev. You steal, you become a slave for life. No, it's a good taina. They didn't know that it was a setup. It looked like Binyamin really took it. They didn't know that Yosef hid his Gviya HaKesef, his silver cup, his silver goblet in Binyamin's sack. Yehuda comes and he tells Yosef, we cannot do this. Why can't we do this? He says, Ki avdecha orav esanar. Your servant became a guarantor for the lad. V'nafshay kshura b'nafshay. His soul is intertwined with the soul of Yaakov. If we come back without Binyamin, Yaakov is going to perish. He won't survive. Yeshiv na'avdecha tachas anar. I will become your slave. You're telling me he stole. There's a law, there's a system. Yehuda says, I know about the system. But ki avdecha orav esanar. I take responsibility for the lad. I could come home with excuses. I could come home to Yaakov. Yaakov will say, where's Binyamin? And I would say, Yaakov, listen, I could guarantee a kid who behaves. But this muzinik of yours, this baby of yours, he's a ganav. His brother Yosef was a troublemaker, and he's also a troublemaker. There's an expression in Yiddish, Mesiris Nefesh helft, arabspringen von Dach. Mesiris Nefesh helft nicht arabspringen auf den Dach. You could have Mesiris Nefesh, you could sacrifice yourself and jump off the roof. You can't say, I'm going to sacrifice myself and jump on top of the roof. How are you going to do that? I'm on the ground. How are you jumping on the roof? You say, you're going to sacrifice yourself. Sacrificing helps to jump off the roof, not jump on the roof. Yehuda says, I'm ready to sacrifice myself, but I can't jump on the roof. If somebody starts up with him, I'll fight the guy. This guy stole. What am I supposed to do? Fight the whole Egypt? What am I supposed to do? He could have said that to Yaakov. But Yehuda was a leader. Yehuda was a Manig Yisrael. Yehuda was a real Rebbe. Yehuda is the Zayd of Mashiach, right? Yehuda is Malchus. So what does Yehuda say? Ki avdecha orav esanar. You're right, I could make excuses. But excuses, I am the guarantor for this child. And therefore I cannot leave if I don't have this child. This is what caused Yosef to reveal his identity. V'lo yachal Yosef l'sapik. Ki avdecha orav esanar. So it's easy in life to be a spectator, to be a fan. You write your check for tzedakah, big check. You get Olam Haba. The Rebbe once told, Lubavitch Rebbe once told a shliach, one of his shluchim, listen to what he said. He said, you come to a city. The city has 100,000 Jewish children. You build a yeshiva, theoretically, and you get into Chinuch HaKosher, you bring into the yeshiva, into the school, 99,000 Jewish children, plus 999 children. Imagine, you bring into Jewish Chinuch, the Chinuch HaKosher, 99,999 Jewish children. Lo yu'uman ki yisupar. It's incredibly amazing. Livyasan vestibakumen. The Livyasan you're going to get. The Leviathan fish. The sushi. Messianic sushi you're going to get. The Sher Habar you're also going to get. Shai Olam is 310 worlds. The mission at the end of Uktzin, every tzaddik is going to get 310 worlds. Lahan Chiloya Vayesh, you're also going to get. Olam Haza you're going to get. Olam Haba you're going to get. Gan Eden you're going to get. Everything you're going to get. Aber die Schliches hast du nicht abgetan. But your mission you didn't fulfill. Do you deserve Leviathan? Of course, you did amazing. Aber die Schliches hast du nicht abgetan. You know why? Because there was one left behind. Ki avdecha orav esanar. You took responsibility. I take responsibility for the child. You have excuses. Excuses. Imagine you take your 10 kids to shul on Shabbos, right? You bring home 9 of them. You come home to your wife. Your wife says, where's Yankee? I brought home 9. Where's Yankee? 9 is not enough. I took care of 9 kids. And they're not easy kids. You know your kids are not easy kids. 9 kids. Where's the 10th? I brought a 9. Achre rabim lahatos. Rubai kakulai. Okay, what? Doesn't work that way, right? If it's on paper, yeah, you did majority statistics. Ki avdecha orav esanar. It's his child. It's her child. You brought him 9. You brought him 19. You brought him 99,000. Ki avdecha orav esanar. If you look at a Jew as a stranger, 99,000 I brought home to you. Was ist schlecht? Who does it? You tell your wife, look at this other yukel, what he brought. He brought home only 8. At least I brought 9. That works if it's a world of statistics, if it's a world of contracts. But when you understand that that one child is Hashem's child, Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem, so l'may nafkamina. You have excuses, you'll get Olam Haba. Fine, you'll get Olam Haba. Oh, but the shlichus hast du nicht abgetan. The child is not here. The child is missing. The inyan hat sich nicht abgetan. The mission wasn't accomplished. The same is true today in the Jewish world. There's a lot going on. So you have a lot of fans, you have a lot of spectators, you have a lot of people on contract. They do good stuff, they do the right thing. But what a person has to ask himself is, did I cultivate the sensitivity of Ke'avdecha Orav Esanar? That it's my baby. It's my thing. When it's your thing, it's a whole different experience. When the Jewish people are your people, when Yiddishkeit is yours, Torah is yours, mitzvahs are yours, another Jew is yours, what's going on by the Jewish people It's your issue. It's not about exonerating yourself or getting it right or getting all the rewards. It's not about that. It's about taking care of the child, because v'nafshek should have been nafshek. What does Yehuda say to Yosef? Eich elel avi v'hanar einenu iti. How can I go up to my father without the child? So Shemi Shmuel says, Eich elel avi is the b'china of Shabbos. It says in Zohar, Shabbos you go home to your father. L'chadoidi l'kras kala p'nei Shabbos nekabla. Eich elel avi, how can I go up? V'hanar einenu iti, the child is not here. I have excuses. He ran away. He was unruly. He was rude. He was obnoxious. He was crazy. Well, that's why not einenu iti. All good. We're not going to punish you. Aber eich elel avi v'hanar einenu iti. If I said upon him, I can't show my face without the child. Why? Not because I'm guilty, but because where's the child? V'hanar einenu iti. Where's the child? Eich elel avi v'hanar einenu iti. That's what type of Yidden we need today. We need Jews today who say, Eich elel avi v'hanar einenu iti. There's this child, that child, that child, this one suffering, that one suffering, this one experiencing this type of challenge, that type of challenge, in this world, in that world, in this community, this community. Eich elel avi v'hanar einenu iti. You have all the excuses. All's good. Aber the Schliches hast du nicht abgetan. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. אתה מבין? Amen, amen, amen. Ja, warte. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Oh, you did it, 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 oh, Hum ba da 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 dum bum 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 ba da dum bum ba ya ya da 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 dum ba da dum bum hey ba da 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 dum ba da dum bum bum hey ba da 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 dum bum 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 ba da dum bum Babam, Yeah. Chaim, l'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Mazel tov.
Couldn't happen. I mean, very almost impossible because they're and it's all to lay up but still have the same place. A year later.
Chaim.
She was expecting, and my wife got the breast first. 2 days before. I was real.
Wow. Was sagt er? Sicher, wat Nellem geworden. Yeah. You hear what he's saying? It's true. He's saying if not for you, what happened Yud Beis Tammuz, the whole world of Chassidus Chabad would have disappeared. It would have vanished. 1927, if the Rebbe Rayatz, if he would have not been saved the way they planned to do it, the whole future would have been cut down. Yeah. Yeah, the whole Chassidus Chabad and all of Yiddishkeit that Chabad built, the whole world, it would have been the whole thing would have been different. So it's not just a day that was then, it's a day that really had a very powerful impact on history. A great Yom Tov, a great Chag HaGeulah. Hashem should help that every one of us should be able to redeem ourselves from all of our inner obstacles and challenges, and our own prisons and exiles, in Gashmias and in Ruchnias and in Avodas Hashem, and be able to fulfill the mission of really lighting up the world. Umal ha'aretz deis Hashem kamayim layom echasim, b'karev mamash l'chayim, 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 l'chayim. Yeah, 100%. 100%. The Moira Naim writes, it says in this week's Parsha, Dorach Bolok, Dorach Koichav Miyakov, V'kom Shevet Mi Yisrael. So what's Dorach Koichav Miyakov? So one Pirush is it goes on Mashiach. Dorach Koichav Miyakov, the star that will come up from Yaakov, come Shevet MiYisrael. Another commentary in the Mefarshim is it goes on every Jew. So the Moedanayim says every Jew has a spark of Mashiach. In every Jew there's a nitzitz of Mashiach. And when every Jew reveals his own spark of Mashiach, it brings out the Mashiach of Klal Yisrael. Every person has a little one. It comes out together, all the sparks create a flame. So every person has within himself the power to bring redemption to his corner of the world. That's what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Amen. 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 B'torch Klal Yisrael. A good Yom Tov, a good Yom Tov, a good Yom Tov. I was to make a bracha achreina. V'shalom tovalo nevarim v'yagva v'yivdu levnechem rina v'chalat seyasada yimchau chof ya baram baram bam bam ya baram baram bam bam ham baram 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 bam 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 baradam bam Hiya bam baram bam 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 boom. Hi da dan da dam bam bam ba ya da dam ba da dam bam ba yam da dam bam 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 ba da ya. Yeah. Slach